The idea is that they're welcoming people to work there. In fact, if you look at the white paper, it talks about how much the international students contribute to their economy and how beneficial they are for the overall scheme of things for that matter. The other thing you need to understand is that it's a white paper, okay? It's an outline of their vision, what they intend to do, okay? But it is not necessarily that it is set in stone. Postgrad student, they need to be prepared even before they leave, so they need to be prepared for that. They need to make sure that they're able to move from their graduate immigration route to a tier 2 visa or a tier 1 visa. And this also makes it important to identify and pick your cities properly. Why this does is because you would want to use this year more effectively in time to find your job, which probably might mean a reduced time of what you could do towards part-time work. They also had a question around that the pass rate had to be 85%. And they need to have an enrollment rate of 90%. What the government has now said is the enrollment rate now needs to move from 90 to 95, that if your students are coming and running away, so it goes against you, And if your pass rate, which is, if it's below 90%, again means you're probably recruiting students of a lower quality.
Hello guys. A few days back, UK has come up with this immigration white paper. And I have come across many mixed reviews on this. It talks a lot about immigration, specifically the students, and people are saying, okay, this is good, this is bad. It's very confusing. So today we are talking to Mr. Sunit Singh, one of the veteran of the industry, who is sending students to UK, Ireland for more than 21 years now. And we would love to declutter it. We would love to understand, okay, what exactly is there in that paper and how it impacts Indian students who are planning to study abroad, specifically to UK. First of all, thanks Sunit ji, and good to see the next podcast that we are doing. The last one did really...
It's good to be on this one again.
So, as I said, my first question to you is this: what is this paper? Like, what is this white paper that talks about immigration in general? Why it is being released? What is the broader level agenda of the government that has released it?
Okay. See, basically, it's a new government which has come in UK, so less than a year where they've been there. And there has been a very strong, let's say, in terms of people have been talking about that, there's a lot of uncontrolled immigration which is happening over there. People, and because of which, you've seen parties like Reform surge over there. While it has been talking about uncontrolled immigration, usually illegal immigration, while they're still thinking about how to process it, they've started to work around towards legal immigration first.
Okay.
The idea is that they're welcoming people to work there. In fact, if you look at the white paper, it talks about how much the international students contribute to their economy and how beneficial they are for the overall scheme of things for that matter, and they would want to continue to welcome them. Yet at the same time, they feel the system probably is open to abuse. They want to cut down on that abuse to ensure it is genuine students, the best and the brightest which is coming over there, rather than somebody who misuses the system to enter it. Because there was some stats around certain nationalities where a significant number of students were transferring to an asylum route, and that sets off alarm bells, is because if you're coming for study and then you reach there and change this thing, so then you probably had ulterior motives right from the start. So things like these, this is what the UK government has gone out to try and solve. And this immigration white paper, as it says, it's just not for students, it's for across all categories of people coming into UK. Students, they've been a lot more positive. I said they do mention about the value around it. The other thing you need to understand is that it's a white paper, okay? It's an outline of their vision, what they intend to do.
Okay.
But it is not necessarily that it is set in stone, It's a path laid down, but there's no timeline defined yet, okay? It's about how they would like to adapt as things change, Obviously, some of these things which I mentioned will come in before others would.
Right.
A lot of them will actually come into play, but there would be certain aspects which may not get there. We've been reading reports about their own Labour Party MPs talking about the fact it's gone a little too harsh at certain places, and there could be pressure on the government to roll back some parts of it. But it's too early days for us to say anything about it.
So usually, like the chatter that we are hearing about, so what is the earliest that we can expect that this changes will be like? Like, is it 2025 2026, 2027? Any?
Just to say, there is practically no timeline defined. See, the last white paper was 2019, and at that is the stage where we introduced GIR, Graduate Immigration Route for Students. They had actually put down that we're looking at from 2021 September. So this is timeline defined. This white paper, which comes in 6 years later, has none of that. It could mean later in the cycle, later this year, early next year, because I think that's the time the minimum they would need to run through the legislation and things like these. I'd more likely middle of next year is the possible timeline, But that's again, because the white paper lists a lot of things. It doesn't mean everything is coming then. Maybe some easy wins for them probably might be earlier in the cycle, some much later, depending on what is the kind of pushback they get from the general public at large.
Right. So let's talk about the details, right? There are certain aspects of it. The first aspect is the graduate visa route, which is of 24 months today. So once a student graduate, they get 24 months to work there, right? And there is a proposed change to reduce it to 18 months. What does this mean for the student who are currently studying there or maybe planning to study there? Does this change? Obviously, from the distance look, it looks like that, okay, window is reduced. But how does it impact really on ground?
Undoubtedly, that 6 months does impact, and there's no going back on that. Having a longer window helps. See, what this was, a graduate immigration route, as it's called. The idea behind this special category visa, and it's still part of your student category thing, is for students to be able to migrate from their student visa into a proper work visa, which would be a skilled visa, which would be a tier 2, or a more entrepreneurial kind of thing, it will be a tier 1 visa. So this was supposed to be a bridge between it. So it helps you run through the processes, jump through the hoops as it might be needed, get your job, anything else. But during this period, you can work as much as you would like, because the government, that's what they allowed. Now that period has been reduced. What it means is the students must hit the ground running when they go in for their classes. So, people get undergrad level, they're at least there for 3 to 4 years. So they will have plenty of time to figure things out and everything else. But at postgrad student, they need to be prepared even before they leave, So they need to be prepared for that. They need to make sure that they're able to move from their graduate immigration route to a tier 2 visa or a tier 1 visa. And but it doesn't mean the employability has dropped. It doesn't mean you have to necessarily return after 18, I said even earlier, because when it was 2 years, the idea was the students didn't want to be just for 2 years, they continue, So even now they would want to continue. So there's no barrier that you cannot continue. So they have not changed anything on that front. Only thing they said is the transition period is 18 rather than 24,
So after 24 months, you were moving to the other kind of visa, which is mostly level 2, skill 2 visa, which is now happening at 18 months, if this happens.
Right.
So nothing changes per se for the students who anyway would have got a job just after graduation or within 6 months, 12 months after graduation. For them, it's the same thing. It's just that they have a little bit lesser time period to change it to the category of the visa, which would have happened 24 months after graduation. But as you were saying that this means that students who are going today will have to do something extra. But what is this something extra?
Yes, I think the students need to be prepared with where and what they want to do. You need to know what are the kind of profile of jobs you're looking for. Understand the companies which recruit for certain positions. What are the policies around those positions? That research needs to start not after you reach there, but before you reach there. It probably needs you to kind of go through the company's details. It probably requires you to go through LinkedIn, building networks around it, and so that you know what they're seeking. You'd also realize that, am I fit for it?
Right.
Yes. Does my resume reflect it? Yes. Great. You're ready for it. If not, how do I build my resume?
Right.
What do I do further? Should I be doing some more research? Is there some internships I need to do? Is there some online certifications I should be doing besides my course? You when you look at those, you'll have those questions which will come up to you, and then it's for you to answer them. When you start answering them, you start building your resume, your profile. You're being ready for those companies. And again, it's also important to know is what is the recruitment process. So each company has a different recruitment process. You cannot approach it on a one size fits all. But if you start at the end and you try and catch up all of those, you realize that because they're all different, you don't have time to search all of them.
Right.
So the earlier you start, the longer you get, the more chances that you will be able to search a lot of those.
So what's the usual course period in UK? It's 1 year, 2 year?
See, undergrad degrees are 3 to 4.
Right.
The postgrad degrees are usually 1 year.
1 year.
Yes.
Got it. So, in this 1 year, they have to study and they have to sort of be prepared and applying for the jobs maybe 6 months into the course.
Right.
Okay. Makes sense.
And this also makes it important to identify and pick your cities properly.
Yeah.
Why this does is because you would want to use this year more effectively in time to find your job, which probably might mean a reduced time of what you could do towards part-time work. If I were to pick, let's say, a London versus, let's say, if I were to go to something like, let's say, Nottingham, I'm going to save about £4,000-5,000 of my living expenses. So even if I'm not doing a part-time work, I'm not spending more. Okay, but you also need to understand the size of the country. The size of the country is that you can easily commute from one part to the other in about 2.5 hours, maximum 4 to 5 hours. Which means, unlike India, where let's say there's a job employment opportunity in Delhi and you're in Mumbai, you have to plan well in advance. You have to take a flight and everything else around it. It's a multi-day expedition. This one is a few hours thing is what needed. So while you might say that, look, my jobs I want to target are in London, but what if I go to Nottingham? What happens? Nottingham's 70 minutes away. I think I spend more time on a traffic jam over here. So it's not that you were reducing your opportunities to find jobs. You are still keeping yourself going. So it becomes very important you pick the right things, pick the right city, pick your costs effectively, which allows you that extra time to target these better job opportunities.
And that's a very interesting take. I don't think students are thinking this way right now, that instead of going to London and doing the part-time job or spending more time figuring out that how can I earn that £100 extra per week, spend that time in finding the right job or maybe towards the education. That's something that I think we also need to sort of push more to the students. I'm sure you guys do.
We do that, and I think that's something we keep talking about. And I think it is very important is that we look beyond the obvious, and because we start thinking from how it is over there. Because, the only idea is I'm planning for, let's say, UK, but I'm thinking India. But you need to get away from it because India is very different culturally, geographically, in many aspects to what UK is. You'll have to go back and see how does people react over there or what works over there for the matter. This is one example I gave you, how geographically India being so wide, one big city to the other is hours away, flights away. And vis-a-vis the other one is probably an hour and a half of train away,
Makes sense. Also, while we were discussing earlier, so you mentioned the fast-track visa for certain domains such as AI, tech. So what does that mean? What is proposed in that direction?
Okay. See, again, it's a white paper. So, right now they've talked about what they intend to do.
Okay.
So details are sparse. Okay.
Right.
But what is very interesting is the day before this white paper's release, the Home Secretary in her BBC interview and earlier before this, the Prime Minister on the same day, talked about how they need to build in skills for these futuristic areas, which was AI and all the other tech areas around it. And they were talking about bringing in a fast-track route to students, for immigration, to come in, which settle faster, So this would be applicable to students as much as it would be for any other professions. And again, because you're already there, you have a higher chance that you probably will ride that wave faster. Okay. How that will be implemented, as I said, it's still just like every other proposal on it. It's an outline of what they intend to do, but they haven't given out how it's going to happen. So as much as I would pick up the fact that they'd intend to reduce 24 months to 18 months, but it is exactly the same level they've given for this as well. So, if one's as important, the other is as well.
So then it becomes very important further to pick the right course or the right domain that you are going into for education.
Oh, always. And even before this happened, see, it's, it's important is you need to identify where the employment opportunities are, than fall in for something what you'd call, because my friend's doing it, and that's when I said, you need to look at a plan for UK, you need to identify if you're looking for this, if I just do another marketing course, yes, there are opportunities for marketing, but are you fit for it? But you will find that a lot of these, if you're coming from engineering background, maybe a space, maybe an AI, look at where the money is. I would say look at where the smart money today is going in, and look at where the big investors are putting in money. You look at, towards space, towards AI, towards all of these areas which is coming in. This is where the future is because where more money invested, more employment opportunities come in, So if you're able to map that, and because there's no point changing streams because my friend said that course is better.
Right.
But maybe the course you need to do is the one which has the best opportunities.
So another thing that was mentioned is the settlement period. So obviously, one of the things that students look at the studying abroad, one of the objective is obviously to earn better, do better jobs, but also eventually settle in the country. And UK has been fairly easy compared to other countries out there in terms of ultimate settlement in the country, and thanks to the Indian community being there. But there has been a point around increasing this settlement period from 5 years to 10 years. How does that impact, or should a student think about that today? How does it matter whether you will get the settlement in 5 years or 10 years, or maybe 3 years down the line they even change it further? So should that be even a factor today?
Personally speaking, and generally what I recommend students is, I think we shouldn't, at the start of their careers, they shouldn't be chasing passports, They should be looking at how do they effectively build their careers, And if that means staying back in that country for longer periods, of course do that. But if it means moving on to a different country, they should do that. Because when you start prioritizing a passport before your career, the chances you probably will have missteps, So yes, settlement helps if you are aiming for it. But, the interesting thing is we've seen the change. The newer generation which is coming in, the Gen Zs and the later, they realize that they have to optimize their long-term growth, And that long-term growth could come in anywhere, So it's important to know what's lying ahead for me and which sectors are growing. Because if the sector is growing, there's opportunities coming up. You will be able to find your way somewhere else and you continue to grow. And if you look at the best careers in the world, they're built over multi-country, multi-continent, this thing. And you should just remain open for it and not get fixated by a settlement for that matter. We've gone through that, we're no longer the 70s where the gap between the West and the India was considerable. There's a good chance, the next 2 decades, as I say, is India's. There's a good chance after 3 or 4 years of working over there, you realize that my best opportunity is back in India. And you have a question, another few years and I get my settlement over here, or should I come back to India? I would say we can go where your career goes,
Makes sense.
The passport was a better life. If you're getting a better life in another country, go there.
Yeah, makes sense. And in fact, there is a lot happening in the global mobility at this point in time. With I've seen people moving to UAE for jobs, especially from Europe, UK, graduating from there. A couple of my friends graduated, in fact, done MBA from US, eventually ended up in UAE working there.
We're seeing a surge in interest towards students wanting to study in Dubai as well, not just for work. And I think we can see that because, it is uniquely positioned to offer a good growth opportunity for generally students and professionals. Probably based on where they're located, 6 to 7 hours, you cover almost 70% of the world, well connected. Emirates probably the most extensive network. You have Emirates, Etihad. Add up these airlines, you covered to everybody on a direct flight, which makes business, transaction, trade so much easier. And if you look at all the negotiations these days which are happening between countries, trade talks, they all seem to happen in Middle East right now because of it being the central position. 2, we've seen it from a student perspective. The parents, they realize that Dubai is very safe. And we're seeing that because, that's driving people in as well. And a lot of people look at, they consider Dubai almost like a 6th metro of India, And it's like from Delhi for 3 hours to Bangalore, 3.5 to Dubai, and they say, it's probably the same. So we've seen a lot of interest. And I think it's just not that, because the fact that they're trying to reinvent themselves beyond oil, there's investment going into a lot of the new age sectors. And that is where the professionals are growing. And you said it's not just Indians who are going there. In the past, it was, the lower end jobs and people who are shifting for that. Today, you're seeing people from around the world, from US, from Europe, from UK. They're all there, It is so multicultural. And yet it gives you the sense of belonging, because it's a lot of Indian touch to it as well.
It's closer
as well.
So earlier you talked about the broader level aim of this white paper is primarily, or one of the aim is primarily to stop the abuse of the system, right? And when I think around that, what kind of abuse is happening? One is from the university side, other is from the agent side. Agent as in the people who are sending students to these universities. So, and there were points around specifically on the university side around compliances and increased fees as well. What are those points? Can we elaborate more on both of those points, and also how it then impacts the students at the end of the day.
Again, I can see there's an intention of the government to kind of increase accountability for both the universities and the consultants around it. At the university level, they always had some parameters. It's always that you needed to have, if students applying for visa, 90% of them have to be approved, which, if your visas are being refused, which means there was not a good quality students which are being recruited. They also had a question around that, the pass rate had to be 85%, and they need to have an enrollment rate of 90%. What the government has now said is the enrollment rate now needs to move from 90 to 95, that if your students are coming and running away, so it goes against you, and if your pass rate, which is, if it's below 90%, again means you're probably recruiting students of a lower quality, So they've changed that to 90 and that to 95, that 5% extra, might not seem much, but it is significant. That puts a lot of onus on the universities to ensure they recruit the right students, because it's just not for them, it's also for the quality of interaction our students who go there, because the quality of students around you, the class around you dictates the experience you have. By tightening this to reduce the abuse, they're ensuring you have the right student next to you, and also by ensuring those people, you're not recruiting students who are going to run away. You're not those who are abusing the system, which tomorrow leads to an adverse reaction against the good quality students for that matter. So this is a very welcome move from the government. Something because we've seen in the past, we've had students, when recruited, because now currently the agent side of it, been recruited who probably some of them knew the students are never going to enroll, or they're never going to attend classes, Now what they're saying is that we have to follow the agent quality framework which has been set out. Earlier it was optional, now it is mandatory for the universities to use it, which puts an onus on them to track their agencies. It needs to ensure the agencies are trained. They need to go through a British Council certification. So there is that thing around that you cannot just work with anybody, but they need to meet the certain quality standards of it. That again is probably used to prevent the quality, the wrong quality students coming into the country. Irrespective of how good you are, every system still continues to be, because I'm sure there'll be people who will find ways around it and everything else, but it'll certainly tighten it up. And I think it'll lead to a better student experience, both while leaving from, going from India, and when you get there as well. So I think it's a very welcome move by the UK government by putting responsibility on both the consultants and the universities on this.
And it's a positive change for the students as well, especially the genuine students who are going for the real education. Because as you're saying that if the quality of the student increases, the peer group becomes better. The peer groups become better, the outcome becomes better.
Yes. See, basically, it's like, at your 20s, you want to be challenged. You want people to question your views. You want every assumption you made about life to be questioned about it, because that's what builds you in the future, because you want to know, am I thinking correctly, But if people around you are not the same thing, they're not questioning things around, because, you don't go to strangers and ask things. It's your friend circle, it's your peer circle, it's the classroom which matters, If in a class, everybody's bothered about just going and doing part-time work, and there's no interest towards learning, you wouldn't get high-quality questions coming into it, So this is ensuring the general quality of students around you, the interaction around you is better, and it'll lead to a better experience.
Makes sense. And has there been any proposed change in the increase in the fees as well?
No, there is no increase in fees which is being proposed. Nothing directly. What the government has been talking about, that they're looking at having the universities contribute from their international income towards skill building for the domestic audience. Which probably in the while they haven't defined it, there's been a thing around a 6%, which would be. Now it will depend on how those universities react to it. 6%, if it's 6, it is significant, but it could also be something which could be absorbed by the institutions as well, And it's possible the institutions sit down with the government and say, look, 6 is too much, let's do 3. And 3 is something they could absorb. So there may not be any significant impact on the students. But if it goes above 6, then you can expect some of it will come up as higher fees for students, or maybe a slightly reduced scholarships. But I think it's still speculative, because the government says they're going to have more detailed discussions on it, and maybe before the, in the budget later in the year, that's when they would probably want to outline it more. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussions around the stakeholders are going to be pretty loud about it. And so I wouldn't want to speculate how that will impact students. I'm hoping that there probably would be no change.
Makes sense. And the other point around the tier 2 skilled visa that the student get after graduate route visa of 24 months or 18 months in the new proposed system, there has been a point around increasing the sort of basic threshold of salary and also redefining the what constitute as a skill. So how does that impact the students today?
Oh, yes. So, see, the government, they did their research on it and they talked about how good the international students adapted to things around it. But they also found there were some students who were going into not skilled areas, specifically towards care workers and stuff like that. So that's where the government wanted to, again, stop abuse for that matter. And they mentioned that you need to be, those positions, you need to be at least a degree level thing. You need to have a better English language skills for it.
Right.
And around it is by increasing the threshold of the salary needed, they're ensuring they don't go into semi-skilled positions, So there is a focus from the government to ensure students are pretty clear that I have to apply for a skilled position, I have to apply for a good job, rather than anything for that matter. So again, in some ways, it's good because students need to be, are crystal clear where their path lies, and they know that before they leave India, So it's well defined for them. Look, I shouldn't be going into it if this is not what works for me, So rather than get there and say, okay, I am not, this doesn't work for me. So I think I welcome the government's move because it is giving students a clarity about how their path is going to be lying ahead.
And what is this salary threshold? Is there a number that is floating around?
There's no number because, see, this is basically for different professions. The government has actually defined it as well. And again, this is something in the white paper, they haven't mentioned any number yet. So they're talking about increasing it. There was a little increase the previous year. There might be a little bit more increase around it. And how high the number is going to be or how low the number is going to be is again speculative.
So Sunit, basis what you have told me today, it doesn't seems like a lot of negative change per se that what is being perceived in some of the publications or some of the articles that I have looked after, because there is a positive change around compliance on the university side, agent side, that ensures that the right students are going abroad. That is good for the ecosystem, that is good for the student, that you are being placed at the right university at the end of the day. And those students whom, even if we have to say no to, that sorry, you should not go there.
Right.
It's win for that student as well, that you can figure out something here in India.
Oh, yes.
And on the top of that, the change on 24 to 18 months, that is also not a life-changing change. Because all what was happening 6 months down the line is happening 6 months before. The jobs are anyway that you look for are in the first 6 to 12 month time period. And that is the time period when you change the visa status. So that does affect some, but nothing much. And regarding the settlement period change, as we discussed that anyway, you should not optimize for that at this point in time, because maybe you can have that in mind. But then that doesn't matter 5 years or 10 years. Ultimately, you go where your career takes you. So overall, it doesn't seem like a lot of change or a negative change. Maybe from my side, I'm looking at it as a positive change at this point in time.
Oh, yes. In fact, there's another point which has not been covered by the press. It's about how the government is encouraging or would want to encourage students to set up enterprises over there.
Right.
So they're looking at revamping their visas, which allow students who wish to set up a business, who wish to build a startup over there, to make it easier for them. Right. And the government is anticipating that this positive change, once the exact policy changes are outlined, would lead to an increase of 3,500 visas. So that means they're looking at additional 3,500 students to set up ventures over there. And I think that's a significant number.
And this is just after graduation?
Just after graduation. They said this is where they see the impact is going to be an extra 3,500 visas. It's on the white paper when they were mapping every change, what is going to be happening. So around this, they're saying extra 3,500 students. And I think that's fantastic if the government is clearly, because, I can see value for them, because obviously a venture startup means more job opportunities. And they're not just restricting it to their domestic students. They said anybody who can come and build one, why not, And again, probably goes back to the other thing where they said quicker, faster settlement for people in select areas, while those areas haven't been defined. But if I read the two together, I think you understand where the government is going for. They are saying is let's build for the future. Let's ensure our people who are coming in are contributing positively to the UK economy, as well as they themselves are enriching themselves. So it's a win-win at both sides.
So if I definitely that's a very positive sentiment, and especially for the people like me actually who would love to start something after graduation. So if I take a bird eye view now, so we've talked about UK and that was my agenda as well. But now in the current reality of the world, when I look at UK, Canada, US, Australia, maybe New Zealand, Ireland, UK still seems like a very attractive option with the current what is whatever going on in the world right now. What are your thoughts around that? How do I compare? If I have to take a step back and say that okay, why UK and maybe not Australia or maybe not
Right.
Canada for that matter?
Okay, so I wouldn't want to compare destinations. Each destination has something going in their favor. But let's talk about UK. The fact is, even in this white paper, the narrative from the government has still been very welcoming. It's still very positive. They're appreciating the role international students play, and they believe it enriches the overall UK experience. It improves quality for the economy over there as well. They've not said students are not good. Only thing they've looked at is how do I reduce abuse in it, And if you look at the statements which have come out from the ministers directly, they've always appreciated Indian students. So UK remains very welcoming. The visa rules are probably still one of the simplest. As a student visa, if you look at how the number of documents needed, it probably has the fewest documents needed among most countries for that matter. Their approval rates are one of the highest in the world, And again, why I'm trying to put this out is that if they were hostile, your visa approval rates won't be as high as it is. The visa system wouldn't be as easy as it is. They would have asked for tons of documents. Limited numbers is what they seek. So they are still welcoming students with both hands. And there is a lot for Indians to build over there as well. Because, we are very close to UK in many ways. And of course, now with this FTA, I think it's only going to get better. And there will be so much of trade happening between both countries. I think people who study over there are uniquely positioned to ride this FTA growth which comes in over the next 10 years for that matter, people who understand both sides of the ecosystem, It'll be need back in India for those companies. There'll be need for the British companies to say, if I have to do business in UK or in India, what do I do? So I think when I read it together, the fact that UK is very welcoming and we've just signed an FTA, of course, the need from that FTA is to build up trade considerably more.
Right.
I think students studying in UK are uniquely positioned to benefit from this.
Right. How about Ireland? Like how I know you said do a compare, but when we look at the loan applications that we are getting at Gandhan, I'm looking at Ireland 100% plus growth from quite some time now.
Right.
So what is it about Ireland that is making it itself as an attractive destination?
Right.
Especially in the current.
Yeah, I think the thing about Ireland is that they've been pretty controlled with the kind of people they've taken in from day one. There's not been an uncontrolled explosion in number of students applying for it. So they've ensured they built capacity, they built systems around it, they worked on student outcomes. So they've been always looking at maximizing student outcomes. And while there's been a big demand from students who wanted to go in, they ensured they never took more than they could. So they would close down courses in time, not overly rely on a single nationality, give a better exposure to students over there. And that's what's kept it going, Ireland as a destination. Again, it's a very welcoming country, very friendly country. People, they've enjoyed talking to others. And that's a welcome Indian students have seen for that matter. The other thing about Ireland has been that the economy is doing really well. One of the best performing Western world economies.
Right.
They benefit from the fact is that a lot of companies have the European headquarters there, from tech companies, pharma companies, biomedical device companies, alternate energy companies, sustainable based things as leading research over there, electronics, chip design. So you look at all of those, most of the companies in these sectors are European headquartered there. And being the European headquartered means there are plenty of job opportunities which are coming up. And Indian students have been able to be absorbed in those places. So just not getting any job. They got a great job, good skilled job in a top-notch company. So it's, we have, so if I look at tech, we have students working in Google and Amazon and all of these good places. You look at pharma, you name the best companies in the world, they're working there. So they've got built a career. And then what the students like is, it's just not a good career. Ireland, like most of Europe, balances work-life balance is very good over there, and students love that. A lot of them who probably start with Ireland with the idea that I might want to move on to another country, many of them say, I may not want to because I enjoy my life here. Of course, at some point they will start, at some point everybody prioritizes their career. They will, so if the need be, they will.
Right.
But yeah, that's what it's saying. The other thing you need to see is Ireland is one of the rare countries which is currently running a surplus in the budget, which means the government has a lot more money to invest as compared, because most places, the government is spending more than the revenue they're earning. Over here, their revenue is way more than what they're spending, and they're increasing the investment cycle considerably, which means as we go further, the employability opportunities will only keep increasing because of the government investment which is coming back,
I think we are already reached almost to the end of the time, but one thing or one question that I have in mind, and especially for you, because again, you have been someone who knows system in and out, especially UK, Ireland. What is it one thing that is missing from this white paper? Any specific thing which you wish that government should have included or should have talked about, or they have covered it all?
Okay, one, I think it's a little sparse on details and timelines. I would have definitely wanted those. Two, I would have tried to build is, what are the steps where the government could do to popularize their graduate immigration route to the employers. It could be built around how do you, breaking out what are the courses they would probably prefer students for. We talked about fast track settlement, but if they could talk about these are the skills which are missing and let's build for those, it would give clarity for students to say, look, this is where my best opportunity lies. And if they fit into that, they would apply for that. So I feel if the government had been a little bit more clear, had more clarity around that, it'll help. And as I said, while the white paper talks so brilliantly about international students, the spin is being put out as a negative thing.
Right.
But if you really read the paper, it doesn't put it out negatively.
Yeah. I think I also agree that the government employer coordination or a framework for the coordination of university and employer should be developed so that the skill gap measurement can happen and such reports can come out so that students can go for such courses. That and I'm sure that there must be something the government must be doing in this direction. Let's wait and see. Yeah, I think that's it. So thanks a lot for
Thank
that.
you, Aman.
And looking forward for the third. So whenever we can do it next. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Aman.